Greetings everyone. So what if the Pope dies? What happens then? Well, we know obviously what happens. There'll be a conclave and in time they will select another Pope. I don't want to preempt the Pope dying. I'm not suggesting he's going to die, although being told that he's in a critical condition, there hasn't been any suggestion that he's coming out of that critical condition, so it does make one wonder what will happen. Now, I'm going to be honest with you folks, and some of you may think that this is a cruel thing to say, or it just isn't right to say something like this, but I'm really not that bothered about whether Pope Francis lives or dies. I'm not saying I want him to die, but I'm saying if he does die, I'm not going to be distraught about it. And it's not going to be for the reason that it would be for some Catholics, because I know there are quite a few Catholics who haven't been fans of Pope Francis, and they actually would like to see him die because they feel he's done so much damage to the church that they just want him gone. That doesn't mean they necessarily wish him to go to hell, but they just don't want him to be the Pope anymore because of the many negative things that he has done while being the Pope. Now, I'm not really in that camp, although I can understand people who have that kind of an opinion. I wouldn't mind seeing him die just because he's suffering a lot. The man's 88 years old, and we've seen him suffer from various things. He wasn't able to walk properly for a while. You remember how he would walk, kind of hobbling over to one side. You could see he was in pain when he was walking. Then after that, he couldn't even walk anymore. He had to use a wheelchair. And we've often read about all kinds of different health problems that the Pope has had. So him dying would be an end to the suffering that he's been going through. And I mentioned earlier how I wouldn't be distraught if he died. You know, normally if somebody is almost 90 years old, you're kind of expecting it. It's not a shock to hear that somebody who's almost 90 has died. No offense to you if you happen to be watching and you are almost 90 or 90 years old, but I'm just saying, you know, in your older age, you do tend to be ready for the fact that you might die. I remember when John Paul II died, I wasn't particularly distraught, even though he was a pope I really loved. Not just because I think he was a very good pope, but also because of the fact that he was Polish. It was an amazing thing. For a long time, people like me didn't realize how much of a big deal that was, because he's the first pope in my lifetime, and I just remember when I was younger being told that the Pope is John Paul II, he's Polish. And I just thought that's normal. The Pope is Polish, yeah. And then later I started to realize, actually more so when he was gone, that whoa, actually he was the only Polish Pope. And that was quite a big deal. But when he died, I wasn't distraught because he had gone through so much suffering. He'd gone through suffering as a younger person, losing his family. And then later on, he went through suffering with Parkinson's, and you could see in his last few years, he was really struggling to move around. And then eventually he was even struggling to talk. And in fact, just before he died, he was having problems saying anything from the papal window. And so when he died, I just kind of felt like, you know, finally there's no more suffering for him. And finally he gets to be with God in heaven. I remember the American President Bush at the time said, a faithful servant of God has been called home, and that's really how it felt. And it meant he didn't have to suffer anymore. And so I feel this way for Pope Francis as well. I know he's been suffering a lot, and this would mean that he no longer has to suffer. And of course, if he doesn't die, that's fine as well. You know, either way, I'm good with whatever happens. If he stays, if he goes. I don't know whether he himself wants to die. Maybe he's had enough of being around here. I don't know. But the chaplain in Medjugorje, who I have mixed feelings on in terms of pastoral care, I don't think he's been particularly great, but in terms of liturgy and in terms of sermons and in terms of the message he gives out, I think he's very good. But he had an amazing experience at Medjugorje before he was a priest, where he saw Mary, and I remember him saying in his testimony that he wished he would die. He said he wished he would die and then he'd be able to go off with Mary. Why waste time getting old, is what he said. And that's really kind of how it is in life, isn't it? You just think getting old isn't fun. A lot of people want to hold on to their life as much as they can, and they do what they can to try and make themselves look attractive even in their older age, but it's no fun getting old. It does seem like a waste of time. You just feel like, man, rather than getting old here, wouldn't it be better to just die and then go to heaven, or spend some time in purgatory and then go to heaven? Obviously, the presumption is that you're not going to go to hell, because if you think you're going to hell, then you don't want to die anytime soon, or at least you want to put that right before you die. But yeah, when it comes to Pope Francis, it's a similar situation. You know, he has gotten old, and generally most people do get old, and they have to go through that stage of life before they leave this world. And sometimes you look at someone in their older age who really is struggling, and you just almost wish for them to die for their own sake, right? It's not that you're cruel and you're saying, oh, hopefully you die. It's for their own sake. I get the feeling I feel that way about myself. If I get to an old age and I really do feel like I'm struggling and suffering, then I would probably hope that I die. I would try to make sure I'm in a state of grace, and then I would hope that I die. So that is why I'm saying I'm not going to be all that bothered if the Pope dies, because it might be the best thing for him. And of course, the people who want him to not be the Pope anymore because they feel that he's not been a great Pope, don't forget that the grass isn't necessarily greener on the other side. So if he is no longer the Pope, that doesn't mean that the next Pope is going to be amazing. We've had some bad popes, and I do often feel, because this would make the most sense, that when we have a bad Pope, it's because the cardinals have not listened to the Holy Spirit. They've just chosen someone who best suited them. Or there was some kind of a, I wouldn't say conspiracy, but there was some kind of agreement between some of them that this is who they would vote for. Whereas when we've had a good Pope, you do really feel like the Holy Spirit was listened to. Because that's what's supposed to happen, right? When they're selecting a Pope, you're supposed to pray a lot and discern what the Holy Spirit is telling you and who he is prompting you to select. And in many cases that has happened, I think, and in some cases it hasn't. But let's see what happens. Obviously, this isn't a video of me saying the Pope has died, because he hasn't, unless he's died right in this moment as I'm filming it. But it's just a video of me giving my thoughts on it, because I haven't mentioned anything yet about this. That's where I stand on this. It's kind of a whatever will be situation. And if he gets out of hospital and carries on, great. It's probably not going to be easy for him, though, given the problems he's had with his lungs. But if this is it, if this is God calling him home, then so be it. And on another topic, just before I end this video, I do want to mention this in case you haven't heard about this. It's not news, as in it's not that recent, but it's fairly recent, and it's something I only just found out. And I'm wondering if you knew about this. Former US President Joe Biden has joined the Freemasons. You may already know this. It says here that the former US President joined the Freemasons, even though the Catholic Church can punish membership of the secret society with excommunication. Because obviously, as we know, the Catholic Church is vehemently against Freemasonry. For numerous reasons I'm not going to go into now, but it makes sense. Mr. Biden, a Catholic, this is from the Catholic Herald, was admitted to the Grand Lodge of Free and Accepted Masons of the state of South Carolina on January 19th. His membership was announced at a ceremony in which Victor C. Major, the most worshipful Grand Master of the South Carolina Lodge, said that on behalf of the members of the most worshipful Prince Hall Grand Lodge of Free and Accepted Masons of the state of South Carolina, he was conferring membership upon President Joseph R. Biden Jr. in recognition of his outstanding service to the United States of America. He's joined the Freemasons at the age of 82, as it says in the next sentence. And he's put himself starkly at odds with the teachings of the Catholic Church, obviously. In its 1983 declaration on Masonic associations, the Congregation for the Doctrine of the Faith stated that membership wasn't permitted in any circumstances. The Church's negative judgment in regard to Masonic association remains unchanged, since their principles have always been considered irreconcilable with the doctrine of the Church, and therefore membership remains forbidden. The faithful who enroll in Masonic associations are in a state of grave sin and may not receive Holy Communion. Now, some of you may be thinking, do you know what? Is this a surprise? I remember that's what I thought. I thought it's sad, but it's not surprising. Given some of the things Joe Biden has done as the president of the USA, it's not surprising he would join the Freemasons. Some people may have thought he was already in the Freemasons, given a number of things he did that were very much against his Catholic faith. But either way, he is now officially in the Freemasons. And once again, this is another reason why he cannot go and take Holy Communion, even though I suspect he is doing so, as he did when he was the president of the USA, signing things that are very much against the teachings of the Catholic Church. Now he's officially a Freemason, meaning he's in a state of grave sin, meaning he cannot take Holy Communion. But it's not just that, because let's be honest, that's the least of your problems, that you can't take Holy Communion. If you're in a state of grave sin, if you die, you're going to hell. So it's not even something he can confess while he's a Freemason, because he can't go to confession and confess being a Freemason when he's still a Freemason. He would have to leave Freemasonry, then confess being in Freemasonry, and then maybe he'd be able to go to Holy Communion. Although again, if a number of his views are what they have been when it comes to very important issues, moral issues, then he probably still can't go to Holy Communion. I don't know, it's not for me to judge. Anyway, that's just a piece of information for you in case you didn't know. I certainly didn't, as I said. This didn't surprise me, again, as I said, but it was sad. It's sad to see. It's sad to see people doing things that are really bad, even if they don't surprise you that they've done them. They don't shock you. It's still sad to see it, because you don't accept it either way. Anyway, I'm not going to worry too much about the state of his soul. I need to worry more about the state of mine. Let me know what you think about the Pope Francis situation, how you feel about it. Would you be very upset if he died? Do you think it would be better for the church if he died? Do you think it would be better for him if he died? Leave your comments below. And obviously, if you didn't know about the Joe Biden thing either, do leave your comments on that as well. Thanks very much, folks, for watching the video. Have a blessed day.